Commander Thraxis of the Galactic Council straightened his ceremonial sash for the third time that morning. 12 PhDs hadn't prepared him for this level of anxiety. But then again, first contact was always nerve-wracking. Well, first official contact. The Council had been monitoring Earth for decades, waiting for humanity to reach the appropriate technological threshold. That threshold being capable of receiving subspace transmissions without immediately worshipping the senders as gods. Humans had finally qualified. Barely. Approaching Earth's exosphere now, Commander, announced Lieutenant Pyrrha from navigation. She was young, eager, and annoyingly optimistic about these primitives. Excellent. Prepare the standard greeting package. Holographic displays, universal translator, the works. Let's make this impressive. Thraxis activated the view screen, expecting to see a quaint blue-green planet, probably with some charming rural landscapes, and maybe a few endearing attempts at space stations. Instead, every alarm on the bridge started screaming at once. What in the void? Thraxis stumbled backward as red warning lights flooded the cabin. Sir! Pyrrha's voice cracked with panic. Atmospheric composition analysis complete. Commander, this planet is saturated with oxygen. 21% oxygen. The bridge fell silent except for the continued wailing of alarms. That's impossible, Thraxis whispered. Nothing survives in oxygen concentrations above 3%. It's a corrosive industrial solvent. It literally dissolves metal on contact. The sensors don't lie, sir. And there's more. Pyrrha's face had gone pale, which for her species meant a disturbing shade of purple. Nitrogen levels at 78%. Trace amounts of argon. Carbon dioxide at 400 parts per million. Sir, this atmosphere would kill us in minutes. This is a Class 5 death world. But the humans. Thraxis gestured helplessly at the view screen, which now showed satellite imagery of Earth's surface. The intelligence report said there are 8 billion of them down there. Yes, sir. Living, breathing. This atmosphere. Yes, sir. Thraxis stared at the planet below. Cities sprawled across the continents. Vehicles moved along roadways. He could see aircraft flying through that toxic soup of oxygen and nitrogen like it was perfectly normal. Get me the Galactic Health and Safety Council, he said slowly. We have a humanitarian crisis. These poor creatures don't even realize they're poisoning themselves. Lieutenant Pyrrha hesitated. Sir, our anthropology team says they've been breathing this atmosphere for 200,000 years. Then we're 200,000 years too late. Prep the landing shuttle. Maximum atmospheric shielding. I'm going down there to speak with whoever's in charge before another soul suffers in that chemical nightmare. As the shuttle descended toward the coordinates marked as United Nations Headquarters, Thraxis reviewed humanity's file one more time. Tool users, recently achieved nuclear capability, showed promising mathematical aptitude. Nothing in the file mentioned they were suicide-breathing extremophiles, living on a planet that violated 47 different galactic safety protocols. The shuttle touched down on something humans called a helipad, which was apparently just a flat circle painted on a roof. No landing field stabilizers, no gravitational dampeners. Just concrete and paint. Thraxis was beginning to sense a pattern of reckless behavior. He emerged from the shuttle in full environmental protection gear, triple-filtered respirator, atmospheric containment suit, and emergency chemical neutralization pods. He looked like he was about to disarm a radioactive warhead, which, given the oxygen concentration, wasn't far from the truth. A human stood waiting for him. Male, roughly middle-aged, wearing what appeared to be a casual jacket and holding a travel mug that was emitting steam, breathing the atmosphere, just standing there, breathing poison like it was perfectly fine. Commander Thraxis? The human asked, taking a sip from his mug. Yes, Thraxis's voice came out muffled through his respirator. I represent the Galactic Council. I need to speak with your leaders immediately about your atmospheric emergency. The human blinked. Atmospheric emergency? What, like climate change? Yeah, we're working on that. Kind of. Well, some of us are. It's complicated. Not climate change. Your entire atmosphere is toxic. How are you alive right now? The human looked down at himself, then back at Thraxis. I'm sorry. Are we talking about the oxygen thing? The oxygen thing? The oxygen thing? Thraxis could feel his breathing pods working overtime. Yes. We're talking about the oxygen thing. You're breathing a corrosive industrial chemical. The human extended his hand. Jake Morrison, environmental inspector. And buddy, if you think the oxygen's bad, wait until you hear about the pollution. Jake Morrison looked at the alien, having a meltdown on the helipad, and tried to remember if this was covered in any of his training manuals. He was pretty sure extraterrestrial atmospheric concerns fell outside his jurisdiction. But then again, somebody from the UN had called him at 6 in the morning and told him to get down here because the aliens think we're all dying. It was barely 9 a.m., and he already needed another coffee. "Look, Commander," Jake said, pronouncing the title the same way he'd say, "Your Majesty," to a cat. "I'm not sure what you want me to tell you." "Yeah, we breathe oxygen. We've been doing it for a while now. It's kind of our thing." Thraxis made a strangled noise through his respirator. Your thing? Your thing? Do you understand what oxygen does to organic tissue? It's a radical oxidizer. It causes cellular degradation. It corrodes metal. We use it in controlled industrial applications with full hazmat protocols. Right, yeah. That's why my truck has rust. Real pain in the ass, actually. Your transportation vehicle is actively dissolving and you consider this normal? Jake shrugged. I mean, I could pay for the rust-proofing treatment, but that's like $800 and she's a '98 Ford. So at this point, we're in a committed relationship with decay. Thraxis turned to his assistant, who had just emerged from the shuttle in similar protective gear. Lieutenant Pira, please confirm I'm translating this correctly. Did he just say he's allowing his vehicle to corrode because of financial considerations? Pira checked her datapad. Yes, sir. I believe the human is expressing acceptance of molecular breakdown as a reasonable trade-off for cost savings. Outstanding, Thraxis muttered. Just outstanding. Are all humans this cavalier about basic chemistry? Jake took another sip of his coffee, which was probably cold by now, but he'd be damned if he'd show weakness in front of an alien. Listen, I don't know what kind of planets you've got out there in space, but here on Earth, we've got oxygen. Plants make it. We breathe it. Fish have a whole complicated gill situation to extract it from water. It's very circle of life. Plants make it? Deliberately? Yeah, through photosynthesis. It's like basic biology. Thraxis pressed a button on his wrist device, and a holographic display materialized between them. Chemical formulas floated in the air, showing molecular bonds and reaction chains. This is what oxygen does to unprotected cells. See this cascade effect? That's called oxidative stress. Your cells should be destroying themselves from the inside out. Jake squinted at the hologram. Okay, but they're not, though. I can see that they're not, and it's medically impossible. We've got this thing called antioxidants. Blueberries are full of them. You should try a smoothie. Lieutenant Pira made a note on her datapad. The human suggests consuming plant matter as a countermeasure to atmospheric toxicity. I got that. Thank you, Pira. Thraxis dismissed the hologram with a sharp gesture. Mr. Morrison, I need you to understand the severity of this situation. According to every known model of atmospheric science, your species should have gone extinct approximately 200,000 years ago. The fact that you're standing here, unprotected, drinking a hot beverage, is a violation of 16 different laws of biology. 17 if you count the fact that it's decaf, Jake said. My doctor says I need to cut back on caffeine. Blood pressure. You have blood pressure concerns and you're worried about caffeine instead of the industrial oxidizer you're inhaling? Man's gotta prioritize. Thraxis took several deep breaths through his filtration system, trying to calm himself. This was supposed to be a triumphant moment. First contact, the welcoming of a new species into the galactic community. Instead, he was arguing with a middle-aged human who seemed more concerned about truck maintenance than the fact that he was technically living in a chemical hazard zone. I need to speak with your scientists, Thraxis said finally. Surely someone on this planet understands the danger you're all in. Jake pulled out his phone, which apparently still had a headphone jack because he was using wired earbuds that had been tangled in his pocket. Very advanced civilization. Yeah, I can make some calls, but I'm telling you right now, they're gonna say the same thing I'm saying. Which is, welcome to Earth. The oxygen's free. The water will probably give you parasites. And if you think the atmosphere's bad, wait until you see what we put in our food. Thraxis felt a headache forming behind his ocular membranes. Get me your scientists. You got it, boss. Fair warning, though. The best atmospheric specialist I know is in Beijing right now. And if you think the oxygen here is bad, just wait until you experience pollution mixed with oxygen. There's more toxicity? Jake grinned. Oh, buddy, you have no idea. 3 hours later, Thraxis found himself in a UN conference room facing Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had been video-conferenced in from somewhere called Princeton and seemed deeply amused by the entire situation. She was eating pistachios during the call. just casually snacking while discussing planetary-scale chemical catastrophe. So let me get this straight, Dr. Vasquez said, cracking another pistachio with her bare hands like some kind of barbarian. You're worried that oxygen is killing us? Not worried. Confused. Horrified. Take your pick. Thraxis had removed his helmet once the conference room had been sealed and filled with a breathable nitrogen-helium mix. His head tendrils drooped with exhaustion. Dr. Vasquez, I've brought my own expert. Perhaps a scientific discussion will be more productive. Dr. Quilnara stepped forward, her 6 arms clutching various data pads and analysis devices. She was the Galactic Council's leading atmospheric scientist, author of 43 peer-reviewed papers, and currently having what her species called a spiral of incomprehension. Dr. Vasquez, Quilnara began, her voice trembling slightly. I've reviewed your planet's atmospheric data 17 times. The oxygen concentration alone should cause rapid cellular apoptosis. You're essentially breathing the same substance we use to sterilize medical equipment and break down industrial waste. Elena nodded, still eating pistachios. Right, yeah. Oxygen's pretty reactive. Super important for cellular respiration, though. We kind of need it. Need it? Need it? Quilnara's voice went up an octave. You're describing a dependency on a corrosive agent. That's not biology, that's addiction. I mean, if you want to get technical about it, yeah, we're addicted to oxygen. We'll die without it in about 3 minutes. 4 if you're a free diver. Jake, who had been allowed to stay in the room because apparently nobody else wanted to deal with the aliens, leaned back in his chair. Tell them about the other stuff, Doc. Elena's eyes lit up. Oh no. Thraxis recognized that expression. That was the look of someone about to make his day significantly worse. Oh, you're going to love this, Elena said, pulling up a presentation on the screen. So oxygen is just the beginning. Let's talk about what humans do for fun. A slide appeared, showing someone running. Just running, for no apparent reason. This is called a marathon, Elena explained. Humans voluntarily run 26.2 miles, usually on asphalt, which is terrible for the joints. During this process, heart rate increases to 160 beats per minute. Body temperature rises to dangerous levels. Muscles accumulate lactic acid, and we lose electrolytes through perspiration. Some people do this multiple times a year. Quilnara's arms went limp. Several data pads clattered to the floor. Voluntarily? Why would you? Induce systemic stress for recreation? Oh, it gets better, Jake chimed in. Tell them about the peppers. Elena advanced to the next slide. A Carolina Reaper pepper. This is a capsicum fruit, bred specifically to be as painful as possible. 2.2 million Scoville heat units. Humans eat these on camera for entertainment. Entertainment? Thraxis felt his breathing accelerate. You consume chemical irritants that cause tissue inflammation for amusement? Some guy made a hot sauce called Da Bomb that's basically a war crime in liquid form. People put it on chicken wings. What are chicken wings? Dead bird parts. Fried. Usually covered in the aforementioned war crime sauce. Quilnara had begun making a high-pitched keening sound that her universal translator couldn't process. Elena continued, clearly enjoying herself now. Then there's deep-sea diving, where we voluntarily increase atmospheric pressure to lethal levels. Mountain climbing, where we go to altitudes with insufficient oxygen. Yes, we complain about not enough oxygen just to stand on top of rocks. Oh, and we have an entire continent called Australia. What's wrong with Australia? Thraxis asked, immediately regretting the question. Everything there is evolutionarily designed to kill you. Spiders the size of dinner plates. Jellyfish, whose sting causes such intense pain that victims beg for death. Octopi carrying enough venom to kill 26 humans. Cassowaries, which are basically dinosaurs that forgot to go extinct. And people live there, on purpose. They have barbecues, Jake nodded. My cousin moved to Sydney, says it's great. Keeps finding huntsman spiders in his car. And he stays? Quilnara whispered. Says the beaches are nice. Thraxis stood up, his diplomatic composure finally cracking. This is insanity. Your entire species has a death wish. You breathe poison, eat chemical weapons, live alongside predatory megafauna, and engage in voluntary physical trauma for fun. How did you survive long enough to develop civilization? Elena cracked another pistachio. Well, that's the thing about evolution, Commander. We didn't survive despite the oxygen. We survived because of it. Our cells have mitochondria, little power plants that use oxygen to generate energy way more efficiently than anaerobic processes. Sure, it's dangerous. Sure, it causes aging through oxidative damage, but it also lets us run down prey for hours, fight off infections, and heal from injuries that would kill most species. You're describing controlled cellular damage as an advantage. I'm describing adaptation. Humans are endurance predators, Commander. We evolved to outlast everything else on the planet. We can regulate our body temperature through sweating, track prey for days, and recover from injuries that would be fatal to most animals. The oxygen didn't make us weak. It made us relentless. Jake raised his coffee mug. We're basically the galaxy's cockroaches, except we invented jazz and nuclear weapons. Thraxis sat back down slowly. I need to report this to the Council. Before you do, Elena said, her smile turning slightly wicked. Would you like to do a field test? We could visit somewhere with, say, compromised air quality. Really show you what humans can tolerate. Compromised? Jake grinned. She means polluted. We're thinking Beijing during rush hour. Or New Jersey. Your choice. There's worse than this? Oh, buddy, Jake said. You have no idea. 24 hours later, Thraxis stood on a Beijing street corner during evening rush hour, wearing enough protective equipment to survive a chemical weapons attack, watching a 70-year-old woman do Tai Chi in the middle of a park. This is fine, he said, his voice hollow. This is completely fine. You keep saying that, Jake observed. But your head tendril things are twitching like crazy. They do that when I'm questioning the fundamental nature of reality. The Air Quality Index currently read 152. The aliens' portable sensors were displaying readings that, according to Quilnera, should require immediate planetary evacuation protocols. Meanwhile, a street vendor 3 meters away was grilling something called lamb skewers over open flames, adding smoke and particulate matter to the already questionable atmosphere. Lieutenant Pira's environmental suit was making alarming beeping sounds. Sir, I'm detecting sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, particulate matter below 2.5 microns, ground-level ozone, and volatile organic compounds. This is a Class 8 hazardous environment. Yeah, this is actually a pretty good day, Jake said. You should see it when the AQI hits 300. That's when it gets spicy. Spicy? Quilnara's voice cracked through her suit's speaker. This is an atmospheric composition that we would classify as an industrial accident. There should be mass casualties, evacuation sirens, emergency medical. Response. A jogger passed by, wearing shorts and a tank top, earbuds in, breathing heavily. Just exercising. In poison fog. That human is engaging in voluntary cardiovascular stress in a toxic environment, Quilnara observed, her 6 arms trembling. This is like watching someone do jumping jacks in a chemical plant. She's training for a half marathon, Jake explained, checking his phone. Says here on her fitness app she does 10 kilometers every evening. Every evening? In this? Well, she probably stays inside when it gets really bad. You know, when you can't see buildings from across the street. Thraxis watched an elderly man approach the street vendor, completely unprotected, and order food that was being cooked in the contaminated air. The vendor handed him a stick of grilled meat with a smile. Money exchanged hands. The man took a bite, nodded appreciatively, and walked away while eating. He's consuming food that was prepared in a hazardous atmosphere, Thraxis said, more to himself than anyone else. He's ingesting atmospheric contaminants with his meal. Adds flavor, Jake said. Also, you should see the food safety standards some countries have. Makes this look like a clean room. A group of children ran past, laughing, playing some kind of chasing game. Their lungs were developing in this environment, growing, adapting. I need to sit down, Quilnara announced. There's a bench over there, Jake pointed. Although you might want to keep your suit on, bird poop is a real concern. Bird poop? Bird poop? I'm worried about atmospheric degradation and you're concerned about avian fecal matter? Hey, bird poop is acidic. It'll mess up your suit's exterior coating. Thraxis walked slowly to the bench, his movements mechanical. He sat down carefully, his environmental suit hissing as it adjusted to the new position. The park around him was full of humans. Couples walking hand in hand, people talking on phones, a man practicing calligraphy with water on the pavement, the characters evaporating in the polluted air. Normal. This was all completely normal to them. Explain something to me, Thraxis said quietly. Do you understand that this air quality is dangerous? Do humans comprehend the risk? Jake sat down next to him, not bothering with protection because apparently humans had given up on self-preservation entirely. Yeah, we know. Government issues warnings. People buy air purifiers. Wear masks sometimes. But life goes on, you know. Can't just stop living because the air's not perfect. Not perfect? Not perfect? This air would kill my species in under an hour. Yeah, but you're not human. Jake said it so simply, like it explained everything. Look, Commander, I'm not saying this is ideal. We've got environmental regulations, pollution controls, international agreements. We're working on it. But humans are adaptable. We lived through ice ages, plagues, wars, and that period in the 80s when everyone thought hairspray was a good idea. We survive. Quilnara had joined them on the bench, though she looked like she might pass out at any moment. The children, she whispered. The developing juveniles are playing in this. Their respiratory systems are forming in these conditions. Yeah, and they'll probably be fine, Jake said. I mean, not great. Increased asthma rates, cardiovascular issues later in life. It's a problem. But humans are really good at dealing with problems by just continuing to exist despite them. That's not a solution. Never said it was. But it's what we do. Thraxis stood up abruptly. I need to test something. Lieutenant Pira, bring me a standard atmospheric sampling kit. Sir? Just do it. And Jake, I need you to remove my helmet. Jake's eyebrows shot up. Dude, are you sure? Your people specifically said, I am aware of what my people said. I need to experience this firsthand. Brief exposure. Scientific purposes. This is how every horror movie starts. But okay. Jake reached up and disengaged the seals on Thraxis's helmet. There was a hiss of escaping filtered air, and then the helmet came off. Beijing's atmosphere hit Thraxis like a physical force. It wasn't just the smell, though, there was that. A complex mixture of vehicle emissions, cooking food, industrial output, and millions of humans existing in close proximity. It was the sensation, the weight of it, the particles he could feel entering his respiratory system. His throat immediately began to constrict. His eyes watered. Every biological alarm his body possessed started screaming. Okay, that's enough. Pyrrha rushed forward with the helmet, sealing it back in place. Thraxis gasped, drawing in filtered air, his entire body shaking. Well, Jake asked, how was it? Thraxis took several deep breaths, waiting for his heart rate to stabilize. That was approximately 15 seconds of exposure. I felt like I was drowning in chemicals. Yeah, pollution does that. Like, I said, not a great day for air quality. And humans just live in this. Billions of us. Every day. You're all insane. Jake shrugged. Yeah, probably, but we're still here. Thraxis looked around the park again, seeing it with new understanding. These weren't primitive beings unaware of their danger. They were survivors, adapters, a species that looked at a hostile environment and said good enough before getting on with their lives. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. I need to contact the council, Thraxis said. This changes everything. Want to grab dinner first? Jake asked. There's a great hot pot place around the corner. What's hot pot? Boiling soup that you cook raw meat in at your table. Real social experience. You cook food yourself? At the table? With boiling liquid? Yeah, it's fun. Thraxis's head tendrils drooped. Of course it is. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened at 0300 station time, which meant everyone was irritable and half. The representatives were still in their sleep attire. Thraxis stood at the central podium, his formal presentation materials abandoned in favor of what he was now calling crisis protocols. Honored council members, he began, his voice tight. After extensive field research on Earth, I must recommend immediate reclassification of humanity from Category 3 emerging species to Type 7 extremophiles, with mandatory quarantine protocols. The chamber erupted in confused murmuring. Chancellor Vorn, a massive crystalline being from the Rigel sector, pulsed an annoyed shade of amber. Commander Thraxis, we called this emergency session because you reported a humanitarian crisis. Now you're suggesting the humans are extremophiles? Your report is contradictory. My report is evolving, Chancellor, because the situation is worse than I initially understood. Thraxis pulled up a holographic display of Earth. These beings don't need rescue. They need containment. That seems extreme, offered Councillor Marin, whose species prided themselves on diplomatic nuance. The humans have barely achieved faster-than-light communication, What threat could they possibly pose? Thraxis pressed a button. The hologram shifted to show footage from Beijing. Humans jogging, children playing, street vendors cooking, all in atmosphere that the sensors labeled hazardous in flashing red letters. This is what humans consider a normal Thursday. The chamber fell silent. Clarify, Chancellor Vorn demanded. They're breathing an oxygen concentration that should cause cellular breakdown. They're living in pollution that violates 47 safety regulations. They're consuming food prepared in contaminated environments. And they're fine with it. More than fine. They're thriving. Dr. Quilnara stepped forward, still visibly shaken from the Beijing experience. Honored Council, I've spent 30 years studying atmospheric sciences. Nothing in my training prepared me for humanity. Their biochemistry is based on controlled oxidation. They literally power their cells by allowing corrosive chemical reactions to occur inside their bodies. It's brilliant and horrifying. And it gets worse, Thraxis continued. He advanced to the next slide, a diagram of human recreational activities. They engage in voluntary physical trauma for entertainment. They consume chemical irritants called spicy food that cause pain, which they describe as delicious. They have entire sports based on hitting each other, with sticks, while skating on frozen water. That's hockey. Jake's voice crackled through the communication channel. He'd insisted on attending the session remotely, and nobody had figured out how to stop him. Great sport. Very Canadian. You weren't invited to speak, Thraxis snapped. You're literally presenting Earth to the galaxy. I feel like I should be here. Chancellor Vorn's color shifted to a deep crimson, indicating serious concern. Commander, are you suggesting humans are dangerous? I'm suggesting they're unpredictable. They evolved on a death world, and somehow decided that wasn't challenging enough. So they invented extreme sports, deep-fried butter, and something called parkour, where they jump off buildings for fun. It's about efficient movement, Jake interjected. You're jumping off buildings. Efficiently. Councillor Marin leaned forward, her translucent form shimmering. Commander Thraxis, with respect, many species engage in risky behavior. My own people have been known to surf solar flares for recreation. Yes, but you do it with proper safety equipment and medical teams on standby. Humans do it because, and I quote, it seemed like a good idea at the time. Thraxis pulled up another image, a can of energy drink. This is a beverage humans consume voluntarily. It contains enough stimulants to stop a Regalian heart. They drink it before exercising. Sometimes they mix it with ethanol, a toxic solvent, and consume it socially. We call that a Jaeger bomb, Jake offered helpfully. Usually a bad decision, but a fun one. You're describing self-poisoning. We're describing college. Chancellor Vorn's color had progressed through the entire spectrum and was now settling on a troubled violet. This council needs to make a decision. Commander Thraxis recommends Type 7 classification and quarantine. Does anyone wish to offer an alternative? I have a suggestion, Jake said, and suddenly his video feed expanded to fill the main screen. He was sitting in what appeared to be his living room, still holding that same travel mug, looking completely unbothered by the fact that he was addressing representatives of 47 different civilizations. How about you stop freaking out and just accept that humans are different? Different? Thraxis sputtered. You're not different, you're terrifying? Yeah, you've mentioned that. Look, here's the thing. Every species has advantages. You guys can, I don't know, do advanced calculus in your sleep or see in 17 different spectrums or whatever. Humans? We're endurance hunters that evolved to outlast everything else on the planet. We turned oxygen toxicity into our primary power source. We thrive in conditions that would kill most species, because that's what we do. We adapt. That's not reassuring, Councillor Marin said quietly. It's not meant to be reassuring. It's meant to be honest. Jake took a sip from his mug. You want to classify us as extremophiles? Fine. Makes sense. You want to require protective suits for visitors to Earth? Probably smart, honestly. Our planet will absolutely kill you. But don't treat us like we're some kind of galactic mistake. We're here. We're alive. And we're not going anywhere. Thraxis felt his head tendrils droop in defeat. The human makes a valid point. They are established and stable, if incomprehensibly reckless. Quarantine may be impractical. So what do you propose? Chancellor Vorn asked. Provisional membership, heavy monitoring, and for the love of all that's stable in the universe, keep them away from our peaceful colonies until we understand them better. Jake raised his mug in a mock toast. Works for us. We've got enough to deal with on Earth anyway. Climate change, geopolitical tensions, and someone keeps making Transformers sequels. What are Transformers? Quilnara asked weakly. You don't want to know, Jake assured her. Trust me on this one. The council voted quickly, eager to end the bizarre session and return to sleep. Humanity was granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council, with Earth designated as a biological hazard sector, requiring Level 5 protective equipment for all non-human visitors. As the session adjourned, Theraxis remained at the podium, staring at Jake's video feed. You realize you just represented your entire species to the galaxy while drinking coffee in your living room? Jake glanced around as if, noticing his surroundings for the first time. Huh. Yeah, I guess I did. Should I have worn a tie? You should have prepared remarks, official statements, diplomatic protocols. Buddy, I'm an environmental inspector from New Jersey. I gave you the same speech I give restaurant owners who think 3 health code violations is acceptable. You just happen to be an alien. Theraxis couldn't help it. He laughed. A strange chittering sound that his species made when confronted with something so absurd that anger no longer applied. You're all insane. Yeah, Jake agreed cheerfully. But we make great pizza. You should try it sometime. Once you build up an immunity to dairy, wheat gluten, tomato acid, and processed meat. That's not how immunities work. It is for humans. And somehow, Theraxis believed him. 3 months later, Theraxis sat in his office aboard the council station, staring at his computer screen with the exhausted resignation of someone who had seen too much. His report on humanity had grown from the planned 12 pages to 473 pages, with 6 appendices, and he still felt like he was missing critical information. The working title had evolved over time. It was now, Why Humans Are Terrifying and Should Be Monitored Closely, a comprehensive analysis of Earth's dominant species and why they violate everything we know about biology. His publisher said the title needed work. There was a chime at his door. Lieutenant Pira entered, looking far more relaxed than she had during the Beijing incident. Sir, the Earth ambassador has sent another gift basket. What is it this time? Hot sauce, beef jerky, and something called caffeinated chocolate. There's a note that says, thought you could use a pick-me-up. Theraxis looked at the items with deep suspicion. After 3 months of studying humans, he'd learned that their concept of gifts often involved mild amounts of danger. Run a toxicity scan on all of it. Already. Did, sir. The hot sauce registered as a Class 2 irritant. The chocolate contains enough stimulants to keep you awake for 16 hours. The jerky is just preserved meat, dried with salt. They preserve food through dehydration and chemical saturation? Apparently it's delicious, sir. Theraxis picked up the hot sauce bottle. The label featured a cartoon demon and the phrase, "Prepare for consequences." This was human humor. He'd learned to recognize it, though he still didn't understand it. Any word from the council on the human application for trade routes? He asked. Approved, with restrictions. No human vessels in Sector 7. No unfiltered human entertainment broadcasts near Quilnar space after Dr. Quilnara's breakdown, and absolutely no human food service establishments within 10 light-years of medical facilities. That last one seems excessive. The medical board reviewed human cuisine, sir. They classified pizza as a controlled cardiac hazard and declared that anything described as deep-fried should require a prescription. Theraxis's communicator buzzed. It was Jake, because of course it was Jake. The human had somehow acquired his direct contact information and used it with alarming frequency. Hey, Commander, just checking in. How's the report going? It's currently longer than most species' entire historical archives, and I haven't even covered extreme sports yet. Oh man, wait until you get to base jumping. That's gonna blow your mind. I don't want my mind blown, Jake. I want it to remain structurally intact. Jake's laugh crackled through the speaker. So listen, I'm actually calling with some news. The UN is putting together a cultural exchange program. They want to send human representatives to Council space. Show the galaxy we're not all bad. Theraxis felt his head tendrils begin to twitch. Define not all bad. You know, demonstrate human culture. Music, art, cuisine, sports. Really give you guys a taste of Earth. That's what I'm afraid of. Come on, it'll be great. We're thinking of starting with a pizza place on the station. Call it Slice of Earth. Absolutely not. A taco truck? No. Coffee shop? Everyone loves coffee. Jake, Your coffee contains enough caffeine to be classified as a stimulant drug in 42 jurisdictions. Yeah, but it's really good coffee. Thraxis closed his eyes, feeling a headache forming. In the 3 months since Earth had joined the Galactic community, he'd fielded complaints about human music being too emotionally aggressive, human literature being needlessly violent, and human athletes requesting to compete without the standard safety equipment, because it ruins the experience. And yet, despite everything, humanity was growing on him, like a fungus. Or perhaps more accurately, like one of their extremophile bacteria that thrived in impossible conditions. Jake, he said finally, I'm going to approve the cultural exchange program, but with conditions. I'm listening. No extreme sports demonstrations, no food spicier than mild salsa, no contact sports. And for the love of stability, no one mentions Australian wildlife. That's fair. What about music? Nothing that requires a volume warning. So basically elevator music. I don't know what that is, but probably yes. Jake was quiet for a moment. You know what, Commander? I think we can work with that. Humans are adaptable, remember? We'll find a way to share our culture without giving the galaxy collective anxiety attacks. That would be appreciated. Oh, and one more thing. We're naming the first human embassy ship after you. Thraxis sat up straight. You're doing what? The ESS Thraxis. Has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Figured you deserved the honor, being the first alien to officially document how terrifying we are and all. I don't know what to say. Say you'll come to the launch party. We're having pizza. Of course you are. After Jake, disconnected, Thraxis returned to his report. He scrolled to the conclusion section, which he'd been avoiding for weeks because he still wasn't sure how to summarize humanity in a way that made sense. Finally, he began typing. Humanity represents a unique challenge to our understanding of biological limits and species behavior. They are adaptable to the point of recklessness, curious to the point of danger, and persistent to the point of absurdity. They evolved on a planet that actively tries to kill them, and responded by inventing civilization, art, science, and something called reality television. They breathe poison, eat chemical irritants, engage in voluntary physical trauma, and consider all of this normal. They have turned their hostile environment into an advantage, their fragility into resilience, and their mortality into motivation. Are they dangerous? Potentially. Are they unpredictable? Absolutely. Should we monitor them closely? Without question. But should we fear them? Perhaps not. Because ultimately, humans are simply doing what every species does, trying to survive, understand the universe, and maybe have some fun along the way. They just happen to do it in the most unnecessarily complicated manner possible. Welcome to the neighborhood, humanity. Please try not to break anything important. And for everyone else, they're serving pizza at the embassy. Proceed with caution. Thraxis leaned back in his chair, looking at the hot sauce bottle Jake had sent. After a moment's hesitation, he opened it and took the smallest possible taste. His mouth immediately caught fire. His eyes watered. Every nerve ending in his face began screaming, and somehow underneath the pain there was flavor. Insane, he muttered, reaching for water. They're all absolutely insane. But he didn't throw the bottle away. Maybe, he thought, humans were exactly what the galaxy needed. A reminder that life didn't have to be safe and predictable to be worth living. That, sometimes the best response to a hostile universe was to look it in the eye and say, "Is that all you've got?" His communicator buzzed again. Another message from Jake. Forgot to mention, that hot sauce is the mild version. The real stuff comes in a bottle shaped like a coffin. Let me know if you want to level up. Thraxis looked at his burning tongue in the mirror, then at the message, then back at the bottle. Absolutely not, he said to his empty office. But he saved Jake's message, just in case. After all, humans were adaptable. Maybe, given time, everyone else could be too.